Hi, I'm Jerry Carter with the Sierra Crest Business Law Group, and I'm talking today about a scenario that is on the minds of a lot of business owner clients of mine. And the scenario or the question is, what happens if I have a key employee who leaves the company and goes into competition with me, using all of my tools, tricks, and knowledge against me? And I've talked, um, I've outlined in a related piece things that the business owner can do ahead of a problem or proactively in advance. And those include getting a non-competition agreement, getting a non-solicitation agreement, and uh, having the employee sign a confidentiality agreement, and then in addition, structuring your customer interaction so that the customer is interacting with your team as opposed to solely with one specific person. Now, sometimes a business owner hasn't gotten all of that in place when the problem arises. And so what I'd like to talk about now is, what do you do if you don't have all of the agreements in place that you need, and a key employee leaves the company and then immediately starts competing with your company? And the analogy that comes to mind for me is, since this is football season, inevitably during any football game, some player on the field is going to get hit or fall in a bad way, and the play's over and the player is still on the field. And think about what happens. Nobody touches that player, right? And a lot of times the team members will kind of stand in a circle around the player. The doctor will come out, the coach will come out, maybe somebody with a stretcher. But the idea is that the whole team gets out there, talks to the player, assesses the situation, and then after assessing, they act in a coordinated way to give aid to that player. Sometimes they'll lift the player on one of the boards or a truck, or sometimes they'll walk them off. But before any of that happens, there's a coordinated effort to assess and decide in the best way. And so in this situation, the player that has fallen down on the ground is the part of your business that is being threatened by the former employee, who turns out may have some disloyal tendencies. Okay, and so the first thing that we have to acknowledge in that kind of a situation is that speed is an important factor. Every day that goes by, you have fewer and fewer options. So you're going to have your most options in dealing with that situation right at the beginning, and then your options start to go away or fade in effectiveness. And so speed is your friend, delay is your enemy. So that's number one. Number two, think about who you need to be on the response team to deal with the situation. First of all, I would encourage you to talk with your business attorney, someone like the Sierra Crest Business Law Group, who I represent, or someone else that you trust in this area of the law. You need to talk to your business attorney to find out what legal options are still available to you, even though you don't have the optimal set of agreements. That's number one. Number two is, you should consider your non-legal options. A lot of times business owners can protect themselves by turning to resources even outside of the law, even though it's a somewhat legal situation. And so think about who those people are. I mean, you have great relationships with vendors, you have great relationships with your current employees and staff, you may have good relationships with customers, and so there's going to be a way that you can that you can use those relationships to strengthen your position in the instance when you have a disloyal former employee. Along with that, another part of your team possibly is going to be somebody with technological expertise. If you have an IT department or you have a contractor who provides IT services, that person can help you assess the situation, help you investigate the extent of the damage that has occurred. And your IT department or contractor can also suggest some technological remedies you may have to restrict future access to those materials. And so that's your team, and you need to rely on your team to assess. And then what I would say is there are 2 points of caution. I mean, just like you're not going to go out onto that football field and start moving the player around when he may have a neck injury, you don't want to start touching stuff until you understand the situation. And so in the instance where you have a disloyal former employee who's competing against you, I would not immediately start talking to the disloyal employee or the former employee. First, talk to the business lawyer, talk to your team members, do your assessment, talk to your IT person, and once you have a strategy and your team in place, that's when you can start communicating with the disloyal employee. Another reason you want to be careful in talking with the employee is that that's going to create an opportunity for the former employee to put words in your mouth, because you'll both agree that you talked on such and such date, and then the former employee may attribute statements to you that weren't actually made or that may have been taken out of context. And so you've got to be extremely careful, because now the situation is more adversarial. You may have enjoyed many cups of hot cocoa or lunches with that employee and developed a camaraderie, but now it's an adversarial situation, and you don't want to expose yourself to having people put words in your mouth. Another thing that I would encourage you to avoid in a situation where you're dealing with a disloyal former employee is that I want to encourage you not to go around bad-mouthing that employee, because when you're throwing mud around, some of it's going to get on you, and it could take a fairly bad situation and make it much worse really quickly. And so be careful with the communications with the former employee, and also with the communications about the former employee, especially before you've talked to your business attorney, your IT professional, and your other team members, your vendors, and your customers. So hopefully that's something that you can kind of put into your future or into your action plan, even though you're in a situation that's difficult. So in life and in business, you sometimes have situations where you're a little bit unprepared at the beginning, but you know how to take a moment, assess, and develop a strategy, get your team together. And this is it's just one more situation where you need to take a moment, assess, get your team together, and then follow a coordinated strategy. If you have any other questions about this kind of a situation with a former employee leaving the company and competing against you, feel free to reach out. I would invite you to come talk to one of our business attorneys at the Sierra Crest Business Law Group. Thank you.